Hey there, it is I me, Alex, your bro-in-law, giving the fist of support, and I am here to talk to you guys about a video relating to a man who goes by the name Owl Bear Samurai. And in it, he was talking about character creation, and more importantly, how do we uh, how do we do character creation? Now, as always, the caveat to that question is based on what the system says in terms of the available options. But in general, I sometimes use divination. I prefer random roll the dice, at least when it comes to the stats. Everything else, I kind of look at each game and measure it as I go. Basically, anything that would be interesting to me, of course. And interesting is so subjective, I'll define it further. For example, when we sometimes what I like to do is take the trope most commonly known for the game style that we're playing, and try and do a character that's about like the juxtaposition, kind of not a slap in the face of that genre, but more like what would be a character that how would a character live in that scenario? That kind of thing that does not really belong there. Things like that. Um, take I sometimes when I take stats, I like to take them and see how they measure up in terms of like, okay, let's take that for Constitution. It would be really silly to do to make a cleric that shows no signs of how his god has helped him. Because usually when someone's a cleric, they're very full of themselves, they're very arrogant because uh, they're channeled into a higher power, and people know it because he has powers come out. So let's take a character concept of this guy is going through hell, and this is the example that Andre gave to Albert Samurai about my character Todd Stone. That's basically what I was trying to do with that one. And there are other characters in the Swords and Wizardry one, but to go back to the turning character concepts based on the trope. One of them, I have many examples with Call of Cthulhu because I played about 6 games of it so far, and the first one I played a hitman. That really isn't too far off. The second time I played a professional wrestler who went by the name Doctor Strange, and he had a bulldog he called shoot Mr. Wong, based off the Marvel superhero. And every single time I would try to convince people. I was more of like a social talker kind of thing. Who had some strength. I would make references to wrestling matches because um, the earliest 20th century, and during that time period, people at least a lot of people still liked to pretend wrestling was real in terms of not staged. And so I would give examples of like other occult fighters that I wrestled with because that was the theme for my character. Pretty clever. Doctor Strange, mystical magic, Mr. Wong the servant, that kind of thing, and all that jazz. So, and then another one would be to kind of play the innocence for a character. Like we played a game of Ingenero, and it's a very favorite game of mine. I'll definitely want to do highlight a review in terms of why I love that game so much and what's wrong with it. Because I'm very honest with that stuff. But the one thing that we did was we played a game where it had to be PG-13 as the criteria. So like no swearing, no like adult themes, none of that kind of stuff. It may be suggestive, but the character that I had to play was a character named Dave, and the idea behind him was that the Sadie Hawkins dance wasn't going to happen because of a lack of funding, budget for the dance, and his goal was to sell candy to get the money, and it was all about how like, come on, yeah, we can get this dance to go, and there was no intentions for that character to actually like date somebody in that thing. It was just for the sake of it, for like this is not right. This is unfortunate. I need to make this right, kind of like a paladin style, but done in a modern setting. So yeah, that's what I do. I looked at the stats. I prefer to randomize them when it comes to stats, but I prefer to personalize them with character build and when it comes to that stuff. And I mean, I have like an hour long discussion on my YouTube channel talking about like what stats mean to me and how I can interpret them for things that interest me. Um, so yeah, I have a lot of history with this with character creation in general. So I love this stuff, especially when it comes to trying to put a twist on things that make me enjoy these things. Final example would be um, I was playing D&D Next. Look out. Non-disclosure agreement. No. But the idea was that I was to play a knight, and he's a hedge knight because his former master mysteriously died, was assassinated, and so the way I did it was that at level 1 I was a mage and I had my powers, and then at level 2 I leveled up in fighter and I had the sub status as a knight, and so I basically played Dudley Do-Right throughout that adventure and played kind of naively, righteous. Um, and that was so much fun to do because there would be scenes where it's like, okay, these are obviously shady people, and I would just pretend like they're royalty in terms of how nice I treated them. I went door to door to many different warehouses in like the shadiest location of town, looking for a wanted criminal. And every single scene started with me taking my hat off, my feathered cap, because I was that fancy of a character, taking it down and bowing, and say like, sorry to disturb you this evening, but I'm looking for a person of, this of this description, that I would show the picture and stuff like that. And oftentimes the GM would have a laugh with it and like, shut the door or like, have someone strung out on drugs or some shit like that, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the sky's the limit, and that's what makes at least building characters so much fun. When I try to set the scene for them and integrate them into the game, and that's how I do it. Is I try to foresee how I could have fun with that character type, and I usually go with my first thoughts because the first thoughts are usually the most accurate, and only upon like real serious reflection will I be able to to get into it. Also, I usually don't use soft story characters. I don't go with characters like, oh, he has AIDS and schizophrenia and he doesn't know who he is real life because his parents died and he has amnesia. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm not really a sappy person in general. I don't really need to do that. That kind of thing. So I think that's like the big, switcheroo because it's kind of boring playing depressing characters all the time. At least to me it does. So yeah, there you go. I rambled on long enough. I know I rambled, but I hope that helps. At least my how I make characters. Have a good one.